I now call upon Dr. Tiyasha Chakma, who is an associate professor at the Department of Bangla in the Islamic University in Kushtia in Bangladesh. Welcome, Dr. Chakma, to our online session. She is going to be talking about the significance of the first Japanese narrative translated into Bangla. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you very
Chakma.
much. Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank Kizuna Forum for organizing such a wonderful event. And I'd like to thank Professor Ashok Jain and Professor Shushila Narasimhan for their great effort for this event. I'd like to share my slides here. So is it visible? Am I coming through?
Yeah, it's visible. If you can make it full screen.
Yes, I'd like to do that. So.
Not perfect. Thank you.
Is it visible?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. The title is very long. Ekti Boshanto Prater Sakura Pushpa, the significance of the first Japanese narrative translated into Bangla. Well, clearly it's about a text. So what is this text about? Or what is this Ekti Boshanto Prater Sakura Pushpa? Well, it's a translated work of Sakura Sogoro, the legendary tale of Japan. It was translated by Surendranath Tagore in 1904. And from my analysis and my research, I have concluded that it was translated from Viscount Tadasu Hayashi's For His People, The Cherry Blossoms of a Spring Morn. The title, which was in English, it was translated almost exactly in Bangla. So as we can see on the right side of my slide, the cover page of the book, the translated work, it's not like a regular book. It looks like a notebook when it was printed. So the shape is exactly as it is shown in the picture. Well, is it the first time I'm talking about this book? Not really. During my PhD, I found the hard copy of this book at Bongio Sahitya Parishad Library in 2022. And I identified it as one of the significant discoveries of my PhD thesis. However, it was just to include the first narrative in the history of Japanese translated texts in Bangla. In my PhD thesis, I have shown that perhaps it was the first attempt at a cultural exchange level between Japan and Bengal in book format. Interestingly, it was not exactly translated from the source text. How I concluded that idea? Because I found that Surendranath Tagore added extra paragraphs in the end of the translated text, which says that an absolute understanding that the book is compiled for admiring heroes. So, any before me talked about this book? Let's take a look. In 2006, Geeta Kenny pointed out that Rabindranath Tagore's Japan Jatri as the first book that contains translation of Japanese poems in the Bengali language. On the other hand, Unita Shachtananda previously stated that Sardar Puran Singh's Japani Bolchal in Hindi, which was published in 1906, was the first work on Japan in India. Later, in 2018, Lopamudra Malik added to her research paper that Rabindranath Tagore's Koriyo Kamal included Japanese poem in the Bangla language. So as my territory is in the Bangla language, so I really didn't go far other than Bangla and Hindi mostly. It's clear that there is a research gap, that whether there was anything before 1906 in book format. In my previous research, I have presented that there were evidences and specimens printed in periodicals. But in that study, I did not really mention about the book format. This research gap leads me to prepare some research questions about this Sakura Pushpo translated text. The first one, what are the similarities and dissimilarities between the source text and the target text, which means Tagore's translation and Tadasu Hayashi's English text? Secondly, what kind of translation technique did the translator follow? And thirdly, what is the relevance of the translated text in the colonial Bengal? My objectives were clear. The first one is examining the textual similarities and dissimilarities between the texts. And secondly, analyzing how the translator translated from the source text. Was it word-to-word translation, or was it summarization, or was it explanation? To discover that. Thirdly, it inquires how the translator found this text as an important narrative to be translated into Bangla. Well, he could have chosen any other text, but why Sakura Sogoro? Why Sakura Pushpo? That was the third question. And it goes to directly, it goes to the socio-cultural changes in the colonial Bengal in the first decades of the 20th century. What did I find between the source text and the target text? Here, the Sakura Pushpo is the target text, and Sakura Sogoro is the source text. Considering the translation style, I found that Surendranath Tagore did not follow word-to-word translation, nor it was summarization. So it was different. When we see the translation style, hear it today, it doesn't really match. On the other hand, the source text was clearly depicted a narrative with dialogues. Source was very clear that Surendranath Tagore followed Hayashi's text. How did I understand that? Because when Tagore was writing the preface, he mentioned about the text or the tale that it is based on a real story and it was performed in different theaters. These lines and this group of words were exactly on the source text by Hayashi. Thirdly, as we can see, I have separated these sections based on my research questions and objectives. The third one is related to the socio-cultural and political changes in Bengal. What really is the essence of this Sakura Sogoro tale? It's the rebellious essence of the text. During the first decade of the 20th century, Bengal was experiencing a lot of political vicissitudes, such as Bengal partition. Also, there were international political changes, like Russo-Japanese War. And historians have stated that Bengal was aware of that political event. So this kind of political situation created a mentality to accept and to express some rebellious emotions through texts. And Sakura Sogoro's hero, the tale, it was rebellious. So it looks like that Surendranath Tagore chose this text because it contained rebellious mentality, emotion that could encourage the then colonial Bengali young generation. The previous literature show that the Sakura Sogoro tale, the legendary tale, even before it was retold by Tadasu Hayashi, it was popular among the Japanese people. According to the bills and scripts, those were archived in Tsubochi Memorial Theatre Museum at Waseda University. This was very popular and continued to be performed through 1870s to around 1900. So it was proved by the previous researchers that it was really, really important to make the masses aware of the dominant administrative process. So what kind of text is this? We cannot say that certainly it's not a poem, nor it is a drama, nor it is a novel or fiction. The one word is appropriate for this text is narrative, because it contains legendary characters and it contains tale from the real society, and it continued over centuries. Researcher Anne Walpole said the Sogoro story was revived in 18600 and quickly found its way into popular novels. The play continued to be performed through the 1870s and sporadically thereafter to 1900. So it was quite relevant to choose that kind of text in the first decade of 20th century by Surendranath Tagore, because it was already popular by then. Interestingly, Surendranath Tagore by that time, he met Tenshin Ukakura. He remembered Ukakura, Mr. Tagore, Surendranath Tagore remembered Ukakura in his write-ups later. And perhaps his meeting with Ukakura, Tenshin Ukakura, encouraged him to look for tales or narratives that those could be related to Bengal. So what are the expected results? The key word is Surendranath Tagore transferred the mutinous emotions and facts. No, he did not do the word-to-word translation, but he transferred the emotions and he used his own words. He followed his instincts to communicate with the target readers, which is Bengali readers. The second result is not exactly original for this paper, because in my PhD thesis, I concluded that translating Japanese literature since 1850 till today, it's a colonial influence, because most people depended on the secondary sources, which is English. The third one is quite significant. We already are aware that Surendranath Tagore was very conscious and aware about the political changes of colonial Bengal. He even took part in several revolutionary events. So choosing a revolutionary text, transferring mutinous emotions and facts, perhaps it was a political stake for him. The key point is, he did not look for any other text from any other culture like Russia, China, or Japan. He chose Japanese text, and perhaps it was due to the connection via intellectual exchanges, such as Tenshin Ukakura, Rabindranath Tagore, that happened in Tagore Bari, Thakur Bari. So what are the possible thoughts? What can we think? Is it possible that the translated Sakura Sagoro might be the earliest work of translation in book format in Bengal? Perhaps it is. This political connections and cultural facts that Bengal partition in 1905, Russo-Japanese War, and intellectual connections between Japan and Bengal by then, these are the most significant cultural events that created a juxtaposition to choose that kind of text in the colonial Bengal by Tagore. So due to the limitation of the presentation, I really didn't include any kind of in-detail analysis of the text. Rather, I'm just emphasizing on the section that was not in the original text by Viscount Sohayashis. The original sounds like this. On the left side of this, in Bangla, পূর্ণতাপ্রাপ্ত হইতে না হইতে প্রথম বসন্তের বাতাসের সঙ্গে সঙ্গে পুষ্পগুলি ঝরিতে আরম্ভ করিয়া ধরাতলের প্রফুল্লতা সাধন করে। ইহাদের পতনেই চরম বিকাশ, পতনেই ইহাদের সার্থকতা। ভারতবর্ষ একদিন ছিল যখন পুষ্পিত কিংসুকবৎ শোভমান ক্ষত্রবীরগণ ম্রিয়মান ধর্মকে উষ্ণ রক্ত সিঞ্চনে সজীব করিয়া তুলিতেন। ভারতভূমি এখন বুঝি শুকাইয়া গিয়াছে, আর তো সে ফুল ফোটে না। Indian continent might have dried out. Those flowers do not blossom these days. Perhaps Tagore added this paragraph or these words, sentences with these vibe and emotions to encourage the young generation to take part in the political events. And he compared it with flowers, blossom of the flowers. So he kept the title as the same as Tada Sohayashi kept in the source. So what can I say? Well, this study reveals that in the first decade of the 20th century in Bengal, younger people from educated families, such as the Tagore family, found Japan as a preferable source of cultural influence instead of Russia, China, and other Asian countries. It is already proved based on other text, but not based on this text. So it's quite relevant to this text also because the translator was from Thakur Bari, the Tagore family. The second one is significant. Importing literary content to encourage the rebellious Bengali generation from Japanese society is an indication of this intention. So the other intentions, for example, the other works by Mamotonath's work or Suresh Chandra Bandyopadhyay's work, those were really based on connecting two countries or two geographical areas, two cultures, not bringing something or importing something to encourage, to influence the younger generation to develop their characteristics. So working on that characteristics level, it really happened through this text. It looks like Surendranath Tagore targeted the younger generation. So is Sakura Sagoro relevant today? Well, of course it's relevant. The text, the translated text, Bangla itself contains the Bangla sentences and words of colonial Bengal in the first decade of Bengal. It also carried the contents from Japanese culture to Bengal through a tale, a legendary character. It can be a useful source to experience or to explore these connections just only by studying these two texts, the source text and the target text. So it looks like it's relevant today. These are the sources I used for my presentation today. It's a quick look. So that's end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chatma, for that enlightening presentation on what you have now determined as the first Japanese narrative to be translated into Bangla. Thank you. Are there any questions, please? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And I have just a quick question. Like, Surendranath Tagore was how old was he when he published this one, 1904? How old was he? Do you know?
I really didn't focus on that.
Oh, okay. Well, so yeah, it doesn't
I
matter.
really didn't focus on that, but I found out that when he met Tenshin Okakura, he was young.
Yeah, because I remember Okakura wrote about him and called him like Shuren no Waka. Waka means young prince or something. So probably it was 1901 or 2. So he was still young. So that's why I asked you how old was he.
I really didn't calculate. I really didn't calculate. Thank you. I'll take that as advice. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a big work for that young age, like translating.
It was really surprising. Yes. Thank you. I'll add it to my paper. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Michael.
Just a quick comment. Probably you're aware of that, but remember that a few years ago, the National Museum for Japanese History, which is located in Sakura City in Chiba, had an exhibition about Soguro. Just to mention that, if you know about that. And also, second point, it was called Gimi no Sekai, I think, and then Sakura Soguro Densetsu, so legend. And in the beginning, you said it's based on a true story. But as far as I know, it's not a true story, but it's a kind of legend. And also in the exhibition in the catalog, they said it's basically not proven that there actually existed a person with that name. But of course, it was, how to say it, in the Meiji period, it was promoted as a model for the patriotic people. So it was very, very relevant at the time the translation was later done. But it's basically a legend, and also that there was this exhibition, and probably they have a catalog about that. And I'm not sure if they mentioned anything about other translations or just wanted to mention that.
Thank you very much for that information. I'll take a look into that and add to my paper. But may I add a little thing about that based on true story? Actually, I didn't say that. The translator translated those phrases of words, those group of words from the source text that was retold by Viscount Tadasu Hayashi. So in Viscounts for His People, it was mentioned that it was based on true story. And Surendranath Tagore picked those words and he translated it into Bangla. So it looked like he wanted to follow the source text, and it looks like he wanted to convince the target audience, I guess, target readers. But thank you very much. I'll add that information to my
The sakura,
paper.
of course, is flower, sakura, cherry blossom, but it's not the person. Actually, it's not sakura, but yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yes. Yes. So due to the limitation of the time frame and the slides, so I just picked the key sentences as findings.
Thank you. So. Are there any questions? Further questions,
thank you very
please?
much.
I don't see any more questions. So There it is. Yeah, please.
I think I'm going to ask a very stupid question. And then I'm sorry, this is going to be the last question, if it is. I have been listening to various presentations, and then a lot of things happen in Bengal, right? And then the independence movement, and then the passionate exchange between Japan. That is from Bengal, not from I don't know, Tamil Nadu or Punjab, but it's always Bengal. And then in Japan, when some historical revolution happens, then like Satsuma and Choshu, then there's some uh, national trait kind of like education or the behavioral background to support, to nurture such kind of, the sentiment starts. So I've been always wondering why Bengal is always the center of the freedom fighting, and then also the center of the Indo-Japan exchange in those days. Is there any logical background why Bengal people become like the freedom fighter and all? Just a stupid question. I'm so sorry, but very curious.
Does anybody want to answer this question, please? Especially, I will answer it, of course. But is there anybody who's spoken on Bengali narratives? If they want to answer it, I think they should. Well, I mean, so I'll just give. I mean, I was going to mention this anyway in my summary comments, and I think we can take this as the summary comments. I think the starting from Nile Green's keynote. I mean, Nile Green had a variety of Urdu books in his presentation, and you have Animesh Mohapatra, who's identified as many travelogues in his presentation as we had for all of Bengal too. There are as many travelogues there, and I also mentioned. I only mentioned the Parsi Gujarati travelogues. Gujarati travelogues were being written by Hindus, Jains, and Muslims also. So there's a huge corpus of travelogues in Gujarati which talk about Japan. And then there are the Sindhi people, the most important community from the Indian subcontinent, which settled down in Japan and which continued staying there for a very long time, were the Sindhis actually, who actually replaced or actually elbowed out the Parsis from the business. So the Sindhi community is very important. So if you, I mean, you may have got from this lineup an impression that yes, there is, and there is, I'm not denying it, the Bengal connection was very important, and the narratives which have come out are fantastic, and I think that they are really very important to be understood and studied. And but I think, and if I now go and look back at the languages I know, Tamil, there are many narratives on Japan published before 1950. And Marathi also. Marathi, the earliest book in Marathi on Japan, the full book size length is from the 1880s, which talks about what Japan was. And I have that in my thing. I mean, it was translated by Vasant Narhar Upadhyay in the 1880s in Marathi, and then he issued it in Gujarati also. So I think the connection between India and Japan is all pervasive, and the one language which is the most important is the one which Nile mentioned, which is Urdu. Urdu has got literally, because Urdu was a national language of this country, and Urdu literature was being published from all centers in India: Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Lucknow, Hyderabad, and many other centers. So Urdu is a major source language for Japanese connections, and there are, and plus the Gadar party, which was operating from San Francisco and a direct connection to Yokohama. So they were all traversing via Russia, Japan, and then to San Francisco. So there was a fairly strong Urdu connection to Japan. So I would say that, I mean, and if one starts hunting, I'm sure even languages which I have not mentioned, which is Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu, we already had one text here. So I think all of them would have, and Hindi is another. I mean, Hindi and Urdu, I'm using it synonymously. Hindi in Devanagari characters would also not would also, certainly has a lot of Japanese texts. And like one of the presentations was on the Hindi travelogue, Rahul Sankritayan. So, and there are ones from even earlier than that. So I think Japanese connections were all over the country, and as Professor Riho Isaka mentioned, the Japanese travelers also were traveling all across the country, and I think those narratives are also pan-Indian in that sense. So I would say the connection is certainly pan-Indian.
I'll just add to that, because I think very key to this Indian-Japanese connection is the rise of Pan-Asianism. The feeling of that Asian societies can get together, and I think that originated in the 1700s. It's in the late 1700s. The Asiatic Society of Mumbai is the early, kind of 1800s. It was earlier than that. So the Asiatic Society in India started in Kolkata. So that was another important thing with the industrialists. So if you go back to the 1700s, the late 18th century, you'll see that there's a rise of the Bengali Bhadralok, the intelligentsia. So there's the educated elite, which is how education started. The thought process started. There's a Bengali Renaissance, not very different from what was happening in Europe. The importance of the individual identity. The importance of us as a community. So that originated in Bengal. So there is a huge the root of it is not even the 1900s. It's actually the late 1800s, where you have, the thought process of, then later on it moved into Raja Ram Mohan Roy and, the abolition of sati and, there are a whole lot of social reforms, the widows in India want. So all this came out of Bengal, So this feeling of the educated elite, it was an elitist thought that started the whole process. It came out of writing, just like in France, it was liberty, equality, fraternity. It was writing. So it was, in that respect, the Bengali Bhadralok. So that is the origin of it. And then the rise of the Asiatic. So the feeling of Pan-Asianism actually originated in Bengal.
If I may add to that, I think there's another very important reason, that is the establishment of Vishwabharati. By the Tagore family and by Tagore himself, and by, the way it was popularized by the Tagore family and the way in which it housed so many Japanese scholars. So maybe because of that, the popularity of the institution itself, and Shantiniketan and the constitution of Shantiniketan as an open space where people could come and, practice their culture openly, and also, various kinds of exchanges. This was also a very important reason why Bengal became the seat of, much of reference to this Indo-Japan relationship.
1920. So, she's talking about the origin of it. So why did Shantiniketan come up? It came, go back to the Brahmacharya ashram before that, So there's a whole sides to it, but it originates really in the 1700s.
Right.
Almost. Yeah.
Can I add more?
I'll just add one response to, just to add, thank you, Dr. Mukhopadhyay, for mentioning Tagore. So that reminds me of a Gujarati travelogue, which has, I think, not been read by any Bengali, which is written by Shiti Mohan Sen. He accompanied Tagore to China and Japan in, I think, 1925 or 24, and since, of course, Tagore himself has got very strong Gujarati connections, but Shiti Mohan Sen was completely fluent in Gujarati, and he sent a series of art. It was serialized in a magazine, and it was published in book form called Chin Japan Yatra by Shiti Mohan Sen, which basically talked about Tagore's travels to these two countries, in two parts, China and Japan. And that's very interesting. I didn't talk about it in mine because it was completely out of my scope of my essay, but that's another travelogue written by a Bengali in Gujarati. So you find all kinds of connections, and similarly in Urdu, you will find all kinds of people writing in Urdu.
No, in fact, the Sens are different. He's Amartya Sen's grandfather.
Yeah, of course,
So there's a whole lot of history.
Yeah, so that's it. But the travelogue has become obscure because it's in Gujarati and nobody has read it. And then when I first saw it a few years ago, I was looking for Bengali translations, but then I find that no Bengali person has actually seen that travelogue.
Mr. Murali, the thing is that possibly we are forgetting that till 1911, Calcutta was the capital of India. Yes, and for that very reason, the Calcutta Intellectual Society, they had been much more advanced in comparison to the other societies of India. And the other point is that we should not forget Swami Vivekananda went to attend the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. It was in 1893, and that was the conference which actually made a dream in the brain of Okakura Tenshin to organize another Parliament of Religion-like thing in Asia, and for that very reason he contacted Swami Vivekananda, and thus Japan and India actually got connected. Yes, and Okakura Tenshin, he went to Calcutta for the first time in 1902, and thus developed the relationship between the two nations.
So, if I may.
Important question. Yes, please. Yes.
If I may, before concluding this section.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Please. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to have such scholarship from this presentation and seminar organized by Kizuna. It will really help expanding my or enriching my paper. I'm really grateful for the advices, comments, and other questions. Thank you, everyone. But before concluding, I'd like to acknowledge that my PhD supervisor, Professor Akushi Suzuki Sensei from Nagasaki University, he guided me to explore this site. And also my master's supervisor, Professor Sajidul Islam from Jahangirnagar University, he advised me on working on these Japanese literary texts translated into Bangla. And also I'd like to thank another person who is also present here today, Nabagopal Rai, who helped me find this text in Kolkata. It was right after COVID, so it was very difficult for me to find out this text in Kolkata. I'm really thankful to everyone, to this forum, and who helped me, who guided me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.